the socio-political landscape and the impact as well of the presidential decrees in Haiti before we open the floor for your interventions, your questions, and your thoughts. So to jump right in, we're just going to, give the panelists a chance to really talk a little bit about Haiti. And so my first question is, when you close your eyes or when you reflect and think about Haiti, what do you see and how do you feel?
I'll go. I think thinking about Haiti is very bittersweet sweet for me because it's home, right? The culture is great, the food is phenomenal, and so I love it. But it's also a place where, frankly, I don't see myself living in, right? I have my partner here, we're planning on having a family, and so I also see a place that doesn't have the infrastructure necessary to support LGBTQ communities and LGBTQ families. And so it feels like home in so many ways. It is home for me, but in other ways, it's a home that doesn't really want me, if that makes sense. And so for me, thinking about Haiti, it's definitely very bittersweet.
Thank you for sharing. So bittersweet, it's home, but it's not, a place where you feel is as supportive as you'd like for it to be for your own health and wellness.
Exactly, exactly.
Christelle. Yaisa, do you want to jump in and share your thoughts?
Sure, sure. Hello, everyone. Yeah, Isabel, happy to be here. I can understand Crystal, her feeling. It's something that I share. I mean, I was born and raised in the U.S. I'm Haitian American, um, and I started coming to Haiti the first time when I was 7 and 14. Um, Also, when I think of Haiti, it is home. Especially, I'm in the intersection of two things: of me being a Black woman and a trans, person. So I'm like divided because at home, meaning the states, well, I have two homes, and so I have to deal with the interest, with the issues of being a Black person and what that means and what that entails, the dangers to, the systemic racism. So then when I go to Haiti, I kind of get away from that. But then I'm faced with now my trans identity. But for a long time, it wasn't always visible because I mean, I for the 18 years, I was stealth. So it gave me two things. It gave me, I had the privilege, okay, being stealth. I know that not all trans people have that privilege. But also, I learned exactly, as an assumed cisgender person, what the mentality, what the attitudes were about LGBTQ people, especially trans people that was not heard. So, how do you say? So I was kind of like an imposter. So I got all the indoctrination, the notion, the misconceptions, the fear of, um, you know, LGBTQ people. And for a long time, and I realized that, people didn't know what trans was. And it was just hard to explain. So I decided, well, I'm going to use that privilege to do something positive, to open and be out and change the narrative and change the image and bring the conversation of trans and let people know, like, we're not, it's not the same as, it's not what they think. You said, this is my voice as a trans person, giving a voice to the trans community. So again, that was a way of using, yeah, that privilege of being able to navigate spaces where most trans people are not able to. In a nutshell, that's it. So it's I'm divided between, because when I'm in Haiti, I don't have the systemic racism issue, but then I have the discrimination against my trans identity. So
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And again, it just really shows again that we are complex human beings and we have various vulnerabilities and we're marginalized in different ways, not only because of our race or sex, but also because of our gender identity and the perceptions around all of that. So thank you very much for sharing and for your visibility as well. And we also have Dominique. He may have a little challenge with his internet. He's in Haiti at the moment, so he may sometimes be on camera and sometimes may not be. But Dominique, please go ahead and just tell us a little bit about, and I'm actually not seeing him on the call right now, so I'm just checking through to see if we lost him for a bit. Um, I believe we might have. So we'll pick up with Dominique when he's back on call. I think he's just jumping back in the call. Um, so I'll give us just a moment. Again, this is a real issue. This is part of the challenge as well in terms of infrastructure and the issues that many of our Haitian colleagues face, not being able to access internet as easily as some of us in other parts of the Caribbean, much less as how things are in the global north. So your patience is greatly appreciated. Dominique, if you are back, we were just talking about just your thoughts, how you feel about Haiti. When you close your eyes or when you think about Haiti, what comes to mind? If you don't mind jumping in and sharing a bit with us. And you can keep your camera off if you're having challenges still with your internet.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity and thank you to Nish that has made everything possible, this meeting specifically. And as you already know, my name is Dominique Saville. I am a transgender man and I live here in Haiti. And whenever I think about Haiti is um, I'm not going to lie. One of the things that comes to mind is lost opportunities. Lost opportunities. Why? Because the country is a beautiful country, and the people, specifically the youth, are very interesting, and they want to learn, but there's no opportunities for them to do so. And it is the situation of most young person, but for the LGBTIQ society, like community, it is even worse. If the situation is that difficult for others that are not different, how about us? So this is the first thing for me that comes to mind when I speak about or when I think about AT, and I'm thinking about all these opportunities that we could have taken or that we could have grabbed and make something really interesting or something effective. But yet again, we are losing them, and we are losing most of our young persons because they are traveling all over the world. They are going to Chile, or they are going to Brazil, or the United States, or Jamaica, or any other place. But here they can't stay because they are not safe. They are not welcome. And specifically when it comes to sexual orientation or gender identity, and there is no structure that really helps them grow and that make them feel like someday or somehow they can fight and they can get what everybody gets in their own country. So this is what comes to mind when I think about hate.
Thank you for sharing that, Dominique. And I think that ties quite a bit to what Crystal said about it being bittersweet. It's beautiful as Yaisa shared, but there's a loss of opportunity. Loss of the opportunity to self-actualize and to feel affirmed and to feel supported and to feel all of who you are as a Haitian. So thank you so much for sharing that. And that leads right into my second question to talk about the climate in Haiti, the socio-political climate, and the climate for as it regards LGBTIQ rights. Dominique already kind of previewed this question to talk about, the the violence, representation, and visibility, censorship, the impact of religious-based homophobia. So perhaps, Dominique, you want to continue speaking a little bit about the climate for LGBTIQ rights in Haiti.
One of the things that we should keep in mind for the climate, like the political climate here, is it's not um, it's not a healthy one because there's a lot of grief, a lot of fight, and a lot of unstructured things or undone things, and which leads us to the situation of the LGBTIQ population here. There is there has structure for people that are not different. For people, for every citizen, it is very difficult, and for us, it's even worse because even though the Constitution or the laws include us as citizens, but the population itself doesn't, and the government is not doing anything to include us. And whenever they do, the situation in which they are doing it, it's not favorable for us. Uh, when speaking about the decrees specifically, we can see that these decrees are pretty much something that could have been uh, some kind of victory for us, but it's not because of the situation in which they were promulgated. And which implies that the population is against us, and even the structure that they are trying to put, it's against us, because the government, even though they are doing so, they do not put any um, further institutional or any further laws that can really help us or that can prevent us whenever there is a violation against these laws. So, which means the climate for us is really, it's not clear, and it's unsafe. It's violence everywhere, and people are confused about these laws because they are not specific. They do not say specifically what it has to be said, and the situation in which they come out is a bad one because the parliament is not active actually, and those decrees are presidential decrees, and by the law, the government, the president doesn't have any right to do so. And we as citizens that are for democracy, we can't say that we agree on that. It is good for us, but we can't agree on that. We want to keep it as something that is our own, but we have to be careful because we cannot take position in this situation. If we do, we are either against our own citizen partners, friends, and if we don't, it means like we don't exist. So we are in the middle of every of all this mess, and we have to try to keep ourselves safe, and we have to try to take position because we have to, but we have to think about all these challenges and not put any further person at risk.
Thank you very much for sharing that and for giving us also a very great overview of what's at stake, especially. So thank you so much. I don't know if Crystal, you want to jump in. I think Dominique raised some great points. Anything that you'd like to add there, and as well in terms of like talking about what is at risk, what specifically is at risk for LGBTIQ people, and how are LGBTIQ people being impacted even before the decree. So we can maybe pull back a little bit and talk about what is happening in Haiti and what is the situation for the community at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing at risk is life, just the right to exist, right? I mean, there are other needs, healthcare, education, etc. But ultimately, it's the right to be and to exist that is at risk. And the Haitian community is not very good at separating church and state. And so a lot of the backlash from before the decrees, and even out, and obviously after the decrees, it's from the Catholic and the Protestant churches. And they've kind of shaped the people's perception of members of the LGBTQ community to be a negative one. And so, like even personally, it's you're demon possessed, you're in some kind of illegal sect. So there's just so many negative perception of LGBTQ members. And so even when there is violence against a member of that community, that violence is in that sense supported by the general population. It's you deserve it, or they're trying to quote unquote fix you. And so it is a big issue that the general population is against providing protections and rights to the LGBT community, because when you look at that movement elsewhere, for example, in the US, it's typically the general population that leads the way. And so you have protests for gay marriage, and then the Supreme Court kind of follows up and allows for gay marriage. Or You have protests for against discriminations against transgender individuals. And then the Supreme Court just this year passed a law about it. And so the population typically leads and the government follows. But in Haiti, we have a situation where the government is trying to lead, but really the people aren't trying to follow. The people don't want to get on board with providing protections to the members of the LGBTQ community.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate those insights. Very critical intervention. All right, Yaisa, floor is yours to add. And also, of course, love to hear you speak as well, specifically about what's at stake for the trans community as well.
Okay. One thing to understand in Haiti, we have to go understand the history of it. We've come from a colonial dictatorship mindset. So as Crystal was saying, the people that they don't understand what democracy is. Democracy is something that that we hear about. It's been thrown at us, but and the majority of Haitian population they don't understand that they have a say in government, because we're used to like, okay, these are politicians, they're police, whatever they do goes. That's one thing. And then there's the magical thinking, the religious thinking, all Haitians are very, I don't want to, what's the word? The majority of Haitians are very, God and the spirits or whatnot. So it's a legitimate feeling that LGBT people, especially trans people, we're a condemnation. So we're condemned. We, for example, you'll see if things happen, random things like a rain, a flood, an earthquake. And during the earthquake, I have lots of trans people who were just attacked. This one girl, she was found under the rubble. Then when they took her and had to undress her, realized she was trans. They're like saying, "Oh, that's the reason why this happened to us. That's what the earth is shaking." So they cracked her skull. And there are, it's legitimate. It's like something goes wrong in the culture. They'll see a gay person walk by and they'll say, "Oh, that's 7 years bad luck. That's a bad omen. Let's go beat them up." And that's understood. So you have to understand the mindset. So it's different. Also in the States, it's like, as Crystal was saying, it's not that the population backs up, because there's still a lot of violence against trans women and a lot of pushback. But the community understands that they have a right to be, which is what is not happening in Haiti. The LGBT community also has internalized all this internal homophobia and transphobia. So the first step to do is to have us understand that, yes, to like cleanse our minds, that we are people, because we also demonize our own selves. And which is why we go along with it. And there is, so when you'll see a lot of times, even the LGBT community, they get mad at me. "Why are you so visible? Why are you so vocal? You're gonna get us in trouble." And I understand that, because it's like they have also this, I'm apologizing for my existence, because it's been forever that we're conditioned to think like, we're demonized, we're bad, we're ashamed. And like I said, the biggest thing is like, we have internalized all these phobias and these stereotypes, and we're afraid. And as a community, we're afraid, like, to stick our heads out and to be. So that's one of the things so people need to understand what's going on. So when you want to address the issues, as far as decrees and all that kind of stuff, you will find that the very community itself, they're afraid. They're afraid to go out there. They're afraid, like, shh, let's keep this hush hush. Because if we out there talk about, we'll remind them that we're there, and they'll come and get us. And they need to understand that, it's not right. It's not. No one can come beat you. No one can, because you'll hear a gay person or a trans person that says, you got beaten. You got it. You deserved it. Why are you out there being so visible? Why are you out there? You're provoking. And this is the mindset of everyone, trans, cis, trans, whatever. They all agree, including the LGBT community. We all accept the fact that we are to be demonized, we are to be chastised, and we are to be punished. So I think we have to start from there. That's the word that has to be done, because the government is not going to come out, and just like in the States, they don't just come out. If there wasn't the Martha P. Johnson, there wasn't the people fighting back. Until this day, trans women, Black trans women of color, are being killed, and there's still pushback. But the only difference is that the LGBT community and other places, they realize that this is a wrong. they have a right. We have a right to be. And so they're the one, they have a say in, and the politics and the what's going on. I think that we're visible. They can demand respect and demand, different treatment, and we're not at all at that stage. So we have to go, at the core of things in Haiti, because the very affected community thinks it's legitimate, it's normal, it's right. That's the way it is. And in a nutshell, it's not. That's not. It's unacceptable.
Thank you very much. Very sobering. And all three of you really raised some really critical points, and particularly ties again to what Dominique said about LGBTIQ people being in the middle, and at the heart of it, and also on the fringes, all together at the same time. And I think I'd love for each of you, because you talked about how LGBTIQ people are demonized, and the role, and Crystal, you talked about separating the church from the state. And what we have recognized with the decrees is that the church is at the heart of the pushback as well. And we do know how the church perceives the LGBTQ community in Haiti, and particularly when we look at the earthquake, like you mentioned, Yaisa, how persons basically blamed LGBTQ people for the earthquake in Haiti, and for many natural disasters, the LGBTQ community is blamed. Can you talk a little bit about what is needed? Because, for example, right now with the decrees, I see that the church has a petition out, and amassing, just support against the decrees. What do you think? How is that contributing to whether it's the confusion around the actual information in the decrees, or what are the real issues? How does that take away from the decrees? You're on mute, Yaisa. Let me see if I can help you out. Yaisa, you're on mute.
Is it okay? Can I speak, or is I was
Can you hear me now?
I'm hearing two persons.
Okay.
Yaisa, go ahead, and then Dominique after.
Okay. What happened is, like, again, something you mentioned, which is important. The religious community, we have also religious and political leaders who are pastors, we have this one, I don't know if I can mention his name, but he's a pastor. He was an ex-senator, and some of them, they're in office, and they confuse, the thing is that we need representation, we need visibility, because they're the only ones talking. The people are only hearing their voice. Again, it goes back to that fear of the LGBT community to say, hey, let me get on the radio stations, which are things that I do. Let me get on, Dominique and I, we've written, press notes, press releases saying, like, we're here, we're against this. And of course, they're creating confusion. For instance, the penal code is saying that you cannot discriminate or or harass someone based on their sexual orientation. And they're saying this is gay marriage. They're saying it's corruption. They're saying, all kinds of confusion. And the thing is, people can read the decree and see what it says, but somehow, even while they're reading it and seeing that it's not about marriage, it's not about what they're saying, but it's the opinions, they're forming the opinions of the people. Therefore, the religious leaders and politicians, they're shaping the mind of the people, they're shaping their opinions. And a lot of the time, we are silent. One of the biggest, what we need is to be more visible, or to be given the tools to be more visible. But I understand also there's a safety issue, because a lot of people will say, well, you're Yaisa, you're foreign, you're an American, you can get up and travel, so you'll be visible. I can't be like you. Because a lot of Haitians, just like Dominique, are saying the Haitian LGBT community or activists, they feel like that, well, we go out there and we make ourselves known, we're going to be attacked, we're going to be killed. And what's going to happen? We're out there, we're putting ourselves at risk. And again, what we spoke about, Crystal, we mentioned about as she understood, that you have to understand also the culture of Haiti. It has the Haitians, it's a class conscious country. So in their head, in their mind, if you're part of a certain elite class and you're okay. You can do whatever you want. The morals don't necessarily apply to you. So the backlash doesn't apply to you either. So it also, speaking of privilege, is nothing we understand. So if you're deemed foreign or part of a certain class, you can be openly there, like saying, yeah, those things are reserved, but they're in their head. If you're part of the mass and if you're poor, you should be beaten and demonized, for, how can you be poor and then, and Haitian with all the things we have to suffer and choose, because to them it's a choice, and choose to be different, choose to be gay, choose to be lesbian, choose to be trans. That's another thing they don't understand. They think it's a choice. It's a choice. It's a lifestyle reserved for the, the well-to-do, the affluent, that they're just having fun. But if you're a poor, as they say, petit haïtien, petit peuple, which means little Haitian, child of the people, why would you dare to go do something like that? Because, instead, in their mind, it's like, you can try to be a lawyer, try to, better yourself. Why are you going to choose to be an LGBTQ person? And then there's double violence, aggression towards you. So we have to understand the mindset, the cultural mindset, where they're coming from.
Thank you very much. Yes, Dominique, go ahead with your comments, please. Thank you so much, Aisa.
Yes, this is a very, very good insight that Yaisa has given. What I would like to add is there's two problems that are major when it comes to these decrees. The first problem is of a vulgarization problem. The thing is, the decrees were out. First of all, they did not consult us as the community, LGBT community, to know what to say exactly in these decrees. That is one thing. The second thing is, even though these decrees are out, nobody asked them, nobody has read them properly, nobody knows what it is, what it says exactly. So everybody has their own opinion about it. And regarding that petition, it was wrong, completely wrong. It was not even wrong, it was false. It was false because they misinterpreted everything that was said and they put it out there. And we reacted. We reacted because I was one of the first that saw that petition. And there's a place in that application that help people that to make a like to report it. So we report it. That's why they changed it. They changed the petition. The original version is not there anymore. It's something else. But still, they didn't even like put something out there to say, okay, we misinterpreted what was said. So nobody knows. It's like something that is going on the low. So, and I think that all the reaction that was done towards that specific thing, the decree and the petition, for me, something more major has to be done, like something like official, because the government never speak about it. There were some few videos because they had some kind of a press point, something, and the president speak about it, but it was in the middle of something else. But they never addressed the problem to say, hey, this is exactly what happened, and this is what it is said, and this is what we are saying in what it is, and asking the religious side to at least explain why they put out there that 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 uh, that petition. Nothing was done about that. And one of the things that Yaisa said that I really agree with, and I think that it should be supported and maybe something else should be added to it, is even though the population, LGBTIQ population, they are trained or the best they could to know this is their right, they have the right to exist and everything like that. But we have to have another fight in accordance to that, that could help the government to make structure that could help these people put themselves out there. Because if we are trying to educate them regarding their rights to be, regarding what the law says, international law, local law that protects them, but the government is not involved, I think this is a problem. Because I agree with some reaction. Nobody wants to die doing a fight, even though this fight will benefit their families. we as activists, we see things differently from these people. That's what we are trying to be the front line of everything. But if we want the people to come together and fight with us, there has to be some structure. The government has to be involved. If the government is not involved, there's no way we are one day going to say that this LGBTQ community will someday go out there and say, yes, we are there, and we are fighting with these activist people. They will never put themselves at risk to that. We are willing to do that because we know what we want. But these people, even though they know what they want, they instead rather leave on the on the cover instead of putting themselves out there. So I think that by working with the community and letting them know, training them to know their rights, the government has to show some quality work of their own to be involved in what is being done. If they are not involved, it's like for us, what we are doing is kind of it's not effective. It is effective, but at least 50%, but not 100% effective.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Crystal, do you want to add anything to what Yaisa and Dominique has said?
Yeah, so I completely agree with what they've said, particularly with the need for additional infrastructure, because the penal code is at such a high level, but what is happening on the ground? How are you enforcing it on the ground? And I think that's a whole other discussion, and it just requires so much more than just announcing this is what we're doing, because this is what we're doing. But when you're underground and you're a victim of violence because of your sexual orientation or because of your gender expression, what can you actually do in that moment? And so I think there definitely needs to be an empowerment of the people, an empowerment of the community. Like Dominique said, like you can go, you have rights, and police forces have to be able to enforce those rights. And that's not always true right now. And so I think, like when I read the decrees, it was a good kind of beginning step. But I think without enforcement, those decrees might as well not even be there.
Thank you. Yes, and I think for those who the decrees, like Dominique said, is not publicly as available. I even had a hard time finding access to the 300-page document. And just to say as well that the decrees don't only speak about LGBTIQ rights. It's a lot of different things that are mentioned. Some of the articles specifically just for our participants. One of the articles, Article 208 of the decree says, in cases provided by the law, the penalties for a felony or misdemeanor are increased when the offense is committed because of the sexual orientation of the victim. So that's one of the decrees. One of the other decrees states, Article 306, sexual assault other than rape is punishable by imprisonment of 5 years to 7 years when it is committed by several persons acting as perpetrator or accomplice, or with the use of threat of a weapon, or by a person acting in a state of manifest intoxication, or under the manifest influence of narcotics, or because of the victim's sexual orientation. So there are quite a few of the articles in the decree that specifically make reference to sexual orientation. But as the panelists have shared, the speakers have shared, you know, it was announced without consultation from the LGBTIQ community, and particularly as the decrees also has other things that in there that are challenging to what the general population thinks is to the morals of Haiti. It created quite a huge backlash. And again, there's also misinterpretation about the decrees and whether the decrees talked about bestiality, etc. So there's just a lot of different challenges and conflation of the issues as well that has created a situation where the community is at further risk at this time. With that being said, I just want to pause to say, I do see your question, Manuel, if there is possible to have a copy of the decrees. Yes, just also to know that the decrees in Haitian. Is in Haitian Creole or French? I'm not. I think it's in French.
French.
It's in French. So it's not available in English. However, we can share
It's in
that document
French.
with those who are interested. It's a 300-page document, just so you know. But with that being said, just doing a quick time check, we want to for sure allow for a rich discussion, questions and answers and interventions by all the lovely persons who have joined us. So we are going to take a pause here and open the floor. And just so the speakers know, we will come back to you nearer to the end to ask you, and maybe perhaps as well, or participants can share what they can do to support the LGBTIQ community in Haiti. And we'll have the panelists as well share from their end what their call to action is or are. So at this time, I do welcome you to turn your videos on. And I see that Flavia, thank you so much, would like to take the floor. If you have questions, please start letting us know if you have a question, and therefore I can just let me know and I'll call you to take the floor. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you so much to the panelists for sharing. We'd love to see as many of your faces as possible. So please feel free to turn your microphones, your videos on. Thank you so much. Flavia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the panelists. I think you focus on very key dimensions of the violence and discrimination and all the challenges concerning lives. I think what is here, what we are debating is the right to be, the right to exist, the right to be equal and free. As a commissioner of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and I have the honor to serve as a rapporteur for LGBTI rights, I'd like to express our commitment to be with you in this struggle for justice and rights. So count on the Commission. With Manuel, we were exchanging some WhatsApp, trying to identify which tools we could use to reinforce your voices. I myself, I didn't read the decree, and Manuel was just asking the 300 pages, but it would be very important first to ask more information from the state about the decree and start expressing our concern on the topic of Inter-American standards. So because for us, for the Inter-American standards and the Inter-American Corpus Juris, equality and non-discrimination is part of jus cogens, meaning is a very precious clause, is a precondition for the exercise of fundamental rights. So we have the standards concerning right of freedom and equality, non-discrimination, gender identity. We just adopt a report about trans persons and access to social, economical, cultural rights, and environmental rights. We had the first report on violence against LGBTI rights. The second report that I had the honor to present last year on recognition of LGBTI rights. I myself could visit your beautiful, wonderful country last December, leading a mission of the Commission in local visit. And I had the honor to talk to LGBTI communities. I was with Commissioner Margaret McLean and our staff. So the focus of the in-local visit was the protests. But anyhow, it was a very important moment to get aware and to get information and announces about the situation. Then the commission was back in March. It was our last presidential meeting, period of sessions as well. We had a meeting with Inter-American, with the civil society and LGBTI community. So I just like to express our support, our commitment, knock our door, please. So we are thinking openly, but please, if you have another strategies, feel free to propose. We were thinking, Manuel and I, ask information and use our tool, which is what we call Charter, Article 41, asking the state information and expressing our concerns. We can also make we can use our communication tools with tweets and press release with more precise information. And of course, we have the case system, precautionary measures, and the case system in case of urgency, risk of life. So just to tell you that we are with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Really appreciate your reaffirming your commitment, which I already know that you and Manuel are quite committed to supporting LGBTIQ rights. And I'm just very thankful that we are able to really position what's happening in Haiti. As I shared before, oftentimes in the Caribbean region, the issues that happen in Haiti barely gets to leave Haiti, you know, at the national, even the regional level. People are not as aware as to what's happening as we'd like them to be. So thank you very much for that. And for sure, I will be sending out an email. I suspect everyone on the call is interested in getting a copy of the decree. So I'll be more than happy to send that out via email. And, you know, happy reading. It's a long document. And for sure, though, I think it's very necessary for us to support the movement on the ground with decondensing the decree and really taking it apart to see how we can actually have call to actions from the document and how we can help to support the movement as well as to support the positive things in the decree, but also understanding at the same time that the decree is happening at a time when there's no parliament. So there is that challenge of passing laws without due process. So we do definitely want to keep that in mind. Is there anyone else who'd like to maybe ask the panelists any question? This is a great opportunity. And I see one hand raised by Jessica. I can't see everybody, so if you can also use the reactions, put a, I don't see, maybe a thumbs up or something, so I can know that you want to say something, because I can't see everybody's faces at the same time. But Jessica Huber, thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Neish, and thank you, everybody, for an excellent presentation on the current state of things in Haiti. I'm Jessica Huber. I work at the State Department in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, and I manage the Global Equality Fund, which protects the human rights of LGBTI persons around the world globally. And Commissioner, I'm very happy to see you today. I also tuned in yesterday for the Parliamentarians for Global Action meeting, so I'm happy to see that you're very active on this important circuit, and we're grateful for your participation and attention to these important matters. I did have a question for the panel. I thought they did a great job of really highlighting the challenges, the multiple and arching issues in Haiti and how they specifically address LGBTI persons. Something that I can't remember which panelist said it, but about the crisis of governments and the fact that people don't, I think it was Yaise who said this, about that people don't question authority in Haiti, and they just sort of accept it as it is. And I'm just wondering how, given the multiple layers of challenges in Haiti generally, how you all manage to get this issue of the human rights of LGBTI persons in the sphere of all of the other competing concerns and issues. Do you have colleagues that work on other human rights that you see as allies? And if you could talk a little bit about how you work with others to try and continue to have visibility on the very specific and very concerning human rights issues for LGBTI persons. Thank you.
Can I go ahead? Well, thank you for the question. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So indeed, the problem is visibility, which is hard. And as you said, a lot of times, I myself, I have a trans-led, a trans organization. And my main focus is visibility, being on the radio, being on TV, being on newspapers. And one of the biggest issues or the biggest challenges that we face as an LGBTI, especially the trans community, is a lot of times people, as I said, are afraid to to be visible, to be present, to be out there, because there's no structure, because there's no, you're not guaranteed protection. So, and you just have to kind of make your own protection, make your own, be your own security, be your own, you know, we can't afford to be that visible, because a lot of times, as you're saying, when you think about Haiti, it's not only the LGBT, the population overall, all Asian citizens, there's a lot of lack of infrastructure, lack of knowledge of, of due process of law, which practically is non-existent. A lot of times we have to take things into our own hands. For instance, what I do is, in collaboration with others, is I go to the police stations, I go to the clinics and teach them SOGI, teach them what sexual orientation, gender identity, what it is. And you just go like, an example I was explaining to Neish is, I had a person who was harassed. I go to the police with her, one of my trans girls, because I have a trans shelter, and they laughed when they saw her. And when they saw her, she's like, "Oh, but that's that quote unquote, that's a faggot. That's normal. What did you expect? Of course she's gonna be beaten." And it's not. It's just, to them, it's in their head, it's logical. It's normal. So I took it even further and recorded them, recorded what they were saying, filmed it, just to have a record. Because that's the problem. We being the victims, the LGBTI community, and a lot of leaders are afraid to do these things. Because when you go to the very police, the very officials who are there to protect you, and they look at you puzzled, like you're complaining, but look at this person, look at their expression. Now that's normal. See, that's the mindset. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And the visibility being there. So we're here. No, it's not normal. You cannot do this to us. It's not acceptable. And the problem is, again, is the fear of people are afraid. People are afraid to put their necks out there and, to put themselves at risk. We have to find a way to support each other. See, I don't know. That's something we need to discuss as a community, how we're gonna, but it's a very real and tangible fear. I'm going to be out there, I'm going to be stoned, killed, attacked. I've received attacks and threats. But again, even the people, they say to me, you can always get up and go. You can, because those of them who have, because okay, I'm an American citizen, I can always get up and go. And they'll say, but we are out here on the ground. So a lot of times, not that they don't want to collaborate with me, it's just because I don't, how do I guarantee them, let's go out there and be visible and be there and do this and be vocal and be loud. But I can't, as myself, guarantee them that, I can protect you from the backlash, which is very, very real.
And you also mentioned kind of competing needs with.
I had something. Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
Okay.
I'll do that thing.
So you also mentioned or hinted at competing needs in Haiti, in terms of, there's poverty, there's health, there's so many other needs. But it's understanding that those needs are made worse by someone's status as trans or as gay or lesbian. And so for example, after the earthquake in Haiti, a lot of aid organizations came to Haiti to give food to people and families, and they would give food to the woman of the household, because of Haiti's cultural thinking that women tend to, lead household and make sure that everyone gets food. But that leaves out households where there are no women, right? And so a lot of people who come to Haiti to address hunger, to address poverty, they exclude members of the LGBTQI community. And so the livelihood of the community, their support in those areas, poverty, food, education, it's directly tied to their status as members of the community. And so it's not, I don't see the issues as competing. I see them as being exacerbated by the status. And so even if we remove the status, obviously those issues are still there, but it's like the Haitian community right now in general is disenfranchised, is in some way oppressed, is financially struggling. But then the LGBTQI community in Haiti is further disenfranchised and further oppressed. And so they don't get to share in even the minimal amount of resources that reaches the population.
Yes, I would like to uh, congratulate my two other panelists for saying what they said. It is really true. And one thing I would like to add is the question that most people don't want, not question, the situation that most people are avoiding is the fact that there the structures are here. When I say structures, I'm not talking about government structures. I'm talking mostly about human rights structures that are on the ground and that are doing the best they can, like to um, try to give an answer to whenever there's something that is going on, and that are trying to do some kind of groundwork here. And those institution or association, just like what Yaisa and I we have, and we are trying to work with what we have on hand to create projects or to uh, how can I say, to bring knowledge to people every way we can. And to answer the question of Miss Jessica Hobart, uh, one of the way we found to stand up in the face of injustice and discrimination and stigmatization, regardless of everything that is going on, is to bring our own innovation in the ground, which is not only go on TV or go on radio or use the internet to speak, but is to bring programs that are using the multimedia so that we can educate people regarding what is human rights, and what does it means, what is discrimination, what is stigmatization, because sometimes the person is doing it and they are not even aware that they are doing it, because there's no baseline here in the education that says this is discrimination and this is stigmatization. This is what we are doing. So one of the things that I would love to put out here is there's a program that just arrived this year. I'm not part of it for long. It's called KPF, and this program has as main objective to structure all the association that are either human rights or LGBT rights or other association that are working with key population. I mean, and I think this project is a great project, but for me, it came very late, and it is one way to allow this association to have more room to work. When I say more room to work, is we are the one on the ground. We are the one knowing what would what's what program will work best, and how can we push the institution of the government to get involved. We are the one that knows how to use these tools or how to create tools, like to get an impact to these people. I think that program is a great program, and I don't know if they are going to still continue uh, with that project. And if they do, I mean, when I say they, I mean the international institution that brings it. If they do, I think by, I can say in 2 or 3 years, there'll be more effective result about uh, when I say result, either it is HIV positive, working with HIV positive people, either it is LGBTIQ right, either it is human right in general. I think this will bring uh, a new a new enlightenment to how the networking here can be very effective, because the more and more association are growing, so which means the people of getting are very conscious that they have right and they have the right to protest and they have the right to stand against things that are bad for them or that is not what they want. So I think one of the things that can be done is to encourage this and structure it and allow this association to grow into institutions that are really something that the government can't take decision without consulting. Because one of the things they don't consult us is because they know that we are just association. We are just trying to do our best with the little that we have. So we don't have our voice is there, but it's not as loud as we want because we don't have enough tools. One of the example I could take is, Yaisa said that when this decree were out, one of the things we did, we we wrote many notes, like press notes, international notes, and we distributed these notes to the media. Only 2 of them read them on national, and the rest we didn't know, and we don't have any structure that we can go to and say, okay, why these people didn't put out there our notes, why they didn't read it. So we can ask them questions, and they know that, so they're doing as they please. And I think one of the things that can completely banish this kind of attitude is for the association to have more power, more structure, have more ways of working, and maybe more fun too, because without money we can't do anything. And one of the example I could take is when we went to distribute these paper, some of the medias, they asked us to pay, even, and we know that this is not something that you pay for. So, which means that we have a lot of barriers to overcome. So, if we want to really be effective on the ground.
Thank you so much for that. That was really well said. Thank you for the question, Jessica, and thank you for the panelists for responding. And I just want to I'm going to ask Alexis DeMarco to come to raise her point shortly. But I also just want to point out that based on what the panelists have also said, and even in the situation brief on call to action that I would have shared with many of you, one of the things that I think is important is to offer both solidarity, but also resources to the LGBTIQ movement in Haiti in order to safeguard the lives of LGBTIQ Haitians. Because they both have to go hand in hand. As Dominique raised the point that, you know, getting the message out there is an important step, but that's a barrier to even get the message out there. So we do need, and we call, you know, I'm thankful, Flavia, for your offer of support to use communication tools to amplify the messages. And so this is an opportunity whereby we could perhaps look to condense the 300-page document into really useful messages that can be put out to counter the religious-based and homophobia that's out there, because that is the message out there. It's really mass confusion about the decrees. So this is an important step that we can take as a collective to do that. And we also really do need to increase and support the monitoring of religious-based homophobia and transphobia. Likewise, similarly to the document that the petition that was posted by religious-based leaders, and ensure that in these ways we're not blocking the progress that's been made for LGBTIQ human rights. All right, Alexis, and Alexis is you can introduce yourself, but the executive director of UC Trans. I'm happy to have you on the call. Please jump in and go ahead with your intervention.
Good afternoon now to everybody. So timely for this discussion as it relates to the situation in Haiti, what it relates to LGBTI persons. We here at UC Trans, we support Haiti 100% standing in solidarity with them. We've allowed the opportunity to put out their decree, to put out their voices. We posted on our website. We shared it with our networks. And thank you, Neish. You took the thoughts right out of my head that I wanted to talk about. We need to start bridging the gap of Haitian citizens in their country. We need to look at these individuals as citizens first. The right to health, the right to food, the right to water. And I think us collaborating with the SDGs and persons responsible for SDGs for the basic human rights needs for the citizens of Haiti, including the LGBTI citizens who are already marginalized in Haiti. This decree has caused mass confusion, mass discomfort, along with COVID-19. And at a time when a parliament is not open and they're making these types of policies and decisions, it's very detrimental to the situation on the ground to Haiti. So I would like to say, let us begin to bridge the gap. Let us begin to start recognizing and helping the citizens of Haiti, especially within the LGBTI community, We need to create and design programs like Dominique said. He said that they know what they need for their country. They know the tools that they need. We need to be able to provide the tools for them to be able to sensitize homes, to sensitize families, to sensitize decision makers and gatekeepers, because the reality is across the board when it comes to religion. This is a barrier that we have been facing in the Caribbean for many years that cause vulnerable communities to don't have basic human rights, such as access to water, access to food, access to shelter. Because at a very young age, especially within the trans community, these persons are thrown out of their homes. So their survival skills are very low. The access to education, they did not have a chance and an opportunity to go to school to learn how to read and to learn how to write or to understand or comprehend what are their basic human rights. So I think bridging the gap of Haitian citizens knowing their rights, knowing what is available for them in country. I think all of us, we need to collaborate together. And I think I will call the project Focus on Haiti to be able to show this solidarity. And again, thank you, Flavia, for your commitment in regards to the International Human Rights Commission supporting the people of Haiti, supporting LGBTI rights. But now it's a time for action. We must begin to action these ideas and these conversations that we're having. So that's what I'm looking for, to bridge the gap for these communities. And again, UC Trans, we are committed and we are going to be responsible for ensuring that this work is carried out. You have our commitment and you have our 100% dedication to ensuring that the people and the trans people of Haiti and the LGBTI people of Haiti get the support that they deserve.
Alexis for president. Thank you so much, Alexis. Always such a passionate speaker. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. I goosebumps, echo every single sentence that you shared. And indeed, that's where we're looking for, right? Action. How can we support Haiti? Those are the relevant things. We may not have all the answers today. Maybe this is an opportunity to reflect, to think through, okay, what's the next step? Now that we have more information, and we don't have all the information, we still need to look to see, what else we can decipher from the decrees and what are the next steps. But what we do know is that we have fierce activists on the front lines who have been defending their own lives and the lives of their community. Haiti lost a fierce leader last year, Charles Judy, and his death is still unresolved. We know this. And so we do know that there is much work to do, and there are people who are doing the work, and there is great risk for the work that is being done. And therefore, we really call on all our partners of the governments who are on the call, the UN agencies, funders, and human rights defenders, to really see how can we continue to support. Please reach out directly. I will ask Yaisa, Christelle, as well as Dominique, to share their email address if you'd like to reach out directly to them. You can reach out directly to me as well, so we can collaborate together on the way forward. Just a time check. I'm very mindful of your time as well. So it's now 30 minutes after the hour. We do have about 10 minutes or so. So if we have any other intervention questions, now is a great time to raise them. I'm happy to hear from you, or even if it's just your reflection. If you don't have a specific question, that's okay as well. So please feel free to just let me know in the chat if you'd like to take the floor, so that I can call on you. While we wait for people to do that, please don't be shy. I'm very happy to hear other voices aside from my own. So just one other thing, in terms of like next steps, I think we can think about as we share the decree and think about what we can do and how we can review it. I think one of the things that we raised, like, is that challenging time, right? It's COVID, like Alexa said, and the panelists have shared, where it has some good protections for LGBTIQ people, but it's coming at a time when Haiti doesn't have a parliament, so it means that now is a difficult time to pass certain protections of that nature, and doing so as well come at certain risks. So I think it needs some greater synergy. It needs a lot more involvement, space for the LGBTQ community to have space to meet with the government And that's not happening, as Dominique shared. Even simply having a press release put out was an issue because it just was not being accepted by the local media. And there is a lot more international media about the decree, but there isn't as much directly from the led by the LGBT community, more space to talk about this. So I'll welcome, if you would like to organize a panel with some of our speakers, for your own organization, for your, to talk with various funders. This is an opportunity that we can collaborate on something like that. And we can take it from that step and then collaborate on how we can decondense the decrees as well. One of the other things as well is that we also do need to talk about the positive steps in the decrees as they're published as a right step. The step in the right direction for LGBTQ human rights in general for Haiti, but we also need to acknowledge the challenges that still exist. And the other thing I think as well, we do need to expose the harmful religious-based hate speech both inside and outside of Haiti, by speaking out against the backlash that LGBTQ Haitians are facing and experiencing. And Yaisa and Dominique both take calls, and they have acknowledged and highlighted that there's been an increase in calls from LGBTQ people who have been under further attack from the general population. And so providing space and helping to support the documentation of these human rights violations are very critical at this time for Haiti. So I'll pause here to see if anybody has any questions. Let's see, I'm not seeing any hands thus far. All right, so what I'll do then, I'll have the panelists all share just some closing comments and a direct ask at this time for the listeners. Anything that you'd like to ask or any closing remarks, and we can definitely wrap up a few minutes early. I won't just have us staring at each other for another 15 minutes if we have covered as much as we could at this time. So thank you. I'll probably let's start off with Christelle, Dominique, and then wrap up with Yaisa, if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Outright, for allowing me to share. I think the biggest thing is that obviously Haiti interacts with so many organizations, and I think it's almost conditioning the help or assistance that those organizations are providing to Haiti in other areas to LGBTQ support in some way. And so I spoke about earlier, aid organizations coming to Haiti to give food, but because the people on the ground are Haitian, their own biases kind of come in and they don't distribute food to members of the LGBTQ community. And so it's for organizations that provide other types of help to Haiti, it's kind of having that caveat, and whatever contract is signed, that like the contract or the food donations or whatever is happening needs to include members of the LGBT community. I think it's also thinking of creative ways to just bring awareness to the community. I think that a lot of, Haitians are very stuck in their own bubbles, to be honest. And so it's so important. The visibility idea is so important. But it's also so important for them to see other people supporting the decrees, to see other people supporting trans lives, whether it's, with press releases, but just even having relationships, visible relationships with members of the LGBTQ community, and kind of sending the signal that we're all the same. At the end of the day, we're all the same. Like, it's not who a person chooses to sleep with, it's not that big of a deal. And so I think it's finding ways to reinforce that message within the community.
Thank you very much. Dominique, would you like to jump in now and just give your closing comments, feedback?
First, I'd like to say thank you to Neish and to Outright International for always trying to create opportunities and give opportunities to us activism here in Haiti. And it was really instructive what we did, and to put out there what are our concerns and what we are hoping for the future for Haiti. And I won't say much, only that I am uh, very thrilled to have participated, and I have a lot of hope for the future. And as Neish said earlier, maybe we can have some meeting with uh, other organizations that are decision makers internationally regarding what is going on for LGBTIQ support, or for the how to really convince or both um, talk with the government and see what can be done so that we can protect our people. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominique. Yaisa, if you don't mind wrapping us up today.
Yes. And once again, I thank everyone. Everyone, I thank you, Neish, with Outright, for giving us this opportunity, for giving us, a voice. And I thank everyone, who are here for this is like the outpour of support. And I think, as Alexis and all of us had said, one of the important thing that I'm excited about, I think, which is an exciting time for Haiti, and as far as LGBTI rights. Um, I'm very hopeful, and I think it's important to give each and every sector their voice. Also, one of the biggest things for a long time, when people hear LGBTIQ, they tend to only focus. Their mind only goes to, it's the patriarch, male, homosexuals, gays, and they forget all the other letters of the acronym, especially the T. So I think it's very important, and Dominique and I, we know, like, to get our voice heard, to know that yes, our, over there's a lot of intersectionality, but also there are a lot of specific concerns. Like, a part of the decree that touched is like the right to have a personality, a legal personality, having IDs, being able to, those who had the chance to study, being able to have access to education, all of those things we're also on the marge of all of that. So again, so it's important that we have voices, and to know, like, we're not being divisive, but there are specificities. Trans people for a long time, and all throughout the LGBTQI movement, we always fall by the wayside. So I think it's an honor. It's good to have our voices, because for a long time, when people, the minimal support that was coming in for LGBT, and it was only focused on gay or men having sexual relationships with men, like with the HIV crisis, and everything is just like, but the trans was unknown. It was assumed to be the same. So I think that's important, that to have a voice, that each person can, each one can speak for their own. Yeah, we are a community. Yes, it's LGBT, but the L's have their issues and their concerns, and the B and the G and the T, so, and the Q and the plus. So, which is what I'm excited about, that trans is in the conversation. We're in the mix, finally. So that's it. And I thank you again for the initiative, Neish and everyone. And I'm very hopeful, very excited.
And thank you very much to Yaisa, to Christelle, to Dominique, to all persons who have joined us today for sharing. It's been a pleasure having this conversation, and this is really not the end. Sometimes that I said, but you can look forward to receiving at least a decree from me. And if you have follow-up questions and ways in which you want to partner and to continue to support the panelists who have shared, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address, I'll put that in the chat right away, but you also would have received an email from me as well. So thank you so much for your time and commitment to our communities in Haiti. I look forward to working with you in the future, and do enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure having all of you here today. Thank you so much. Do take care.